Hello, hello everyone. Ugh. Can you tell that I haven't done a webinar for a month or so? Hello, I'm Stacey. Thank you so much for joining me for today's webinar Wednesday. I'm really excited and it feels like it's been a long time since we've done a webinar, even though we've been doing them every month all this year. It's been a really busy month. So today I'm really excited to be chatting to you about digital strategy. It's a topic that I'm very passionate about, and I'm pretty impressed with the way that we tackle strategies at Scout. So I wanted to share that with you all. As many of you would know, the training that we focus on often involves more practical skills. So it is very tactical, looking at how you can use social media, how you can use Google Ads and SEO and measure results and those types of things. And I have had lots of questions from people over the last couple of years on how they can actually bring this all together. Which is where the strategy piece comes in. So it was kind of a little bit cart before the horse. We've always been very much strategy focused, but we know there's a lot of practical skills that people need to learn as well. But having that framework that brings it all together is really important as well. So that's what we're going to be running through today. So I hope you're all comfortable. We're going to be going for about an hour today. And this session is being recorded and all registrants will receive a link to watch the replay following the broadcast. So if you do have to leave early for any reason, you will receive a link to watch it in your own time. Some of you have found the chat box on the left-hand side. We typically use it a fair bit for questions during webinars because this is less of a how-to. We're not in Google Analytics today. We're not going through particular setup type things. I don't think we'll be using it as much, but it's still absolutely available there for you guys to chat amongst yourselves. There is a question section underneath. So if you do have any specific questions, it'd be great if you could use that. That's the best place for me to keep an eye on questions, and I'll be running through those at the end of the session as well. So do keep that in mind. I think that's the only housekeeping we have for the moment. So while I do a bit more of a little intro, it'd be great if we will use the chat box, if you could just give me a yes or no as to whether or not you have a digital strategy at the moment that you have developed, are using or following in whatever way, shape or form. There's no right or wrong answers here, but if you can just give a yes or no in that box over there. So for those of you who don't know me and know what I do, I've been working in digital marketing for very close to 10 years. It's going to be 10 years next year. And I've been developing strategies that whole time as well. So prior to running Scout, I worked for a digital agency in Adelaide as the digital strategist and was responsible for developing, implementing and managing a large number of strategies for a whole range of different businesses and a whole heap of different sizes and scales as well. So it was actually during that time that I did a lot of research into digital strategy. I found a few different templates to follow, as I'm sure lots of you have Googled templates before, but none of them really ticked all of the boxes that I needed. There was always something a little bit missing. So I ended up taking little bits and pieces from all of them and putting together my own framework and template, which we use very successfully at the agency. And then when I started Scout, we continue to use that template. So we had more of a focus on helping smaller businesses, small to medium-sized businesses with Scout, because obviously digital it's certainly emerged 9 years ago. And 7 years ago when I started Scout, it was still emerging and still a very new area. But digital strategy still seems to be an area that people are struggling with as well. One of the other things I'm finding is a lot of us are doing a lot of digital. So we're naturally and organically doing digital. There might be a general marketing strategy, but there's not always an overarching understanding of why we're doing the things that we're doing. And when we're working with limited budgets and limited time, that can be quite challenging, particularly as we're growing and scaling, or if new opportunities come along, it can distract us and put us quite off course and off track. So having a strategy, no matter how big or how small, I think is a fantastic investment in your organisation and your business, and gives you that roadmap to come back to. So we've got a few answers there. Some strategy, but mainly no strategy. We have a strategy but can't get management to follow it. Oh, that's a tough one as well. So we do need to get everyone on board with strategy. We'll be chatting about that as well. So I'm actually just going to close that chat box so I don't get too distracted from my slides, but feel free to keep chatting amongst there. And like I mentioned, you've got the question section in the bottom as well. So I don't know if you guys have seen this cartoon, but it came across my screen at the start of this year and I literally laughed out loud and spat coffee all over my laptop, because this definitely resonated with me, both from an industry perspective and some client perspective as well. So there's always a lot of big, bright, shiny things coming along in digital that people want to jump on board, but often there either isn't a strategy in place already that helps us measure what we should be doing and help us make those decisions, or it's just, like Michael said, Matt, it's not being followed. So it's not a successful strategy in that regard. And I'll always strategies are not static things. That's the other thing you'll find out. Strategies should be quite dynamic. They should give you that flexibility, but there should be some guiding fundamentals in there as well to help you assess these types of new, bright, shiny trends when they come along. So we keep talking about strategy. It is a bit of a buzzword still. It literally just means a plan. That's all it means. It's a plan that helps us get from where we are now to where we want to be in the future. It's a map. It's a roadmap. It's a guide. We just happen to use the word strategy. It's all about how we're going to achieve what it is that we want to achieve. And a good strategy should also help us be able to make decisions quite quickly when we come to new opportunities. So life and business and digital is definitely not a straight road. I should have put that picture in about success, what people think success looks like with a straight line going up and what it actually looks like with all the curly wiggly lines. There's lots of things that are changing and happening all the time. So we need to have a strategy which allows us that flexibility, but also helps us guide and make those decisions, and as an organisation where there are multiple people involved as well. And strategy is really at the core of everything that we do at Scout. So I'm not sure if anybody would actually recognise, but our logo is a compass. So that's the logo that I developed 7 years ago when we started the business, because strategy was at the core of everything that we do. And it was all about determining the direction that our clients wanted to head in, that we wanted to head in, and making that happen. We've certainly got off track and off course over the years as well, and made some pivots and adjustments, and that's not a bad thing because it happens to all of us all the time. But having that guide, that roadmap, that strategy has helped us assess, make changes where we need to, and get back on track as well. So I'm going to be talking you through the various stages of the strategy process that I use. We're going to be tackling them piece by piece to start with, and then towards the end of this webinar, you'll be able to see the full picture of how they all come together as well. And there's three main components. So the first component is what I refer to as the real foundational elements of your strategy. And they're really where we should be spending the most of our time and energy to start with. It's often the bit that people like to skip over, because the second part is the engagement tactics. So that's our content and channels and campaigns, and that's the fun stuff. But if we don't get these fundamentals right, then our strategy is generally not very successful or not very useful. And then the third piece is our measurement of the strategy. So you'll be able to see how all of this comes together. Excuse me, I'm battling a little bit of a sore throat at the moment, which I'm hoping is going to be okay with this webinar and the session I'm running tomorrow. So let's jump in. The first component of our strategy is aims and objectives. So at the start of developing any strategy, we need to know what it is that we actually want to achieve. Where do we want to go from where we are now? What do we need to happen to make our organisation or our business successful, that we can then use digital to achieve. So some people use the term goals, and it should certainly be in line with your business goals. I prefer to use a combination of aims and objectives. So aims are broad and general, and our objectives are specific and measurable. And you might have one aim that has multiple objectives as well. And using this pairing, it can take a little bit to get your head around, but it's really helpful when we actually get to the measurement component, and everybody wants to measure the ROI of digital and social. If we have some clear measurable objectives to start with, that measurement piece becomes really easy. So, for example, a common aim is often to increase brand awareness. So most organisations want to reach and engage with more people. They want more people to know about them because it gives them a greater chance of selling their product or service or offering to a wider audience of ideally relevant people as well. So it's a very legitimate aim to have, but it can also be a little bit wishy-washy. So we need to nut it down with some specific objectives. So that could be something like our objective is to increase our online community. This could be our followers or our likes if we have more of that social focus. Increase our online community by 200% in 2019. So we often refer to things like and follower counts as these vanity metrics, but they do help us measure and gauge brand awareness. So for some organisations, they might be an important metric, an important objective to achieve. Another one might be something like maintain overall online reach by a certain percentage, or to set an increased target. And this doesn't have to be just social. This could be across your website with trying to get more traffic from particular channels or all of your channels. There's so many ways that you could actually map out some specific objectives that help you increase your brand awareness online. Another common aim is increasing brand loyalty. So it's one thing for people to know about us, but we actually want them to buy from us or engage with us or work with us, and ideally either do that repeatedly or be referring us to their friends and family and network, which they can do online as well, to demonstrate that loyalty and help us reach even more people and do even more of the things that we want to do. So another very legitimate aim, but on its own, difficult to measure. So an measurable objective for increasing brand loyalty could be achieving a consistent engagement rate of a certain percentage across all of our posts. Again, it's a bit more of a social reference here, but that engagement rate with people liking, commenting, clicking, sharing on our posts is a measure of the loyalty that people may have to our particular brand. Or it could be increasing email subscribers by a certain percentage in a certain year or over a certain time period. So having somebody willingly give you their email address so that you can communicate directly with them is a really good measure of loyalty. So, and having these clear objectives also starts to influence the engagement tactics that we might be using as well. So it can be helpful from that perspective. And then we've ultimately got develop new business. So I use these three as an example because they're pretty universal. We generally want more people to know about us. We want more people to like us. And we want more people to do business with us. So an objective for developing new business might be generating a certain percentage of new leads via our online sources. Or it could be generating a certain percentage of sales from our online sources specifically. And these are both ones that need some appropriate tracking implemented before we can actually measure them. But hopefully you're starting to get the idea of how that aims and objectives combination works. And if you are developing a strategy, feel free to use those three. They're the three that we generally use as a base. But if there are some that are quite specific to your business or area, that's even better as well, because it generally means you can create some really specific, really engaging content and campaigns to go with it as well. So that's the first part of our foundation for our strategy. The second is target audiences. So this is all about knowing who we are trying to reach and engage with. And this could be customers and clients. Usually we start off with customers and clients, potential customers and clients, but there are so many more target audiences that we could be reaching and engaging with online. It's worth thinking about all of them and even breaking them up into primary, secondary, and tertiary audiences with how important they are to us. So besides our clients, there's also referrers and advocates. So the people who are actually going to recommend us to other people, particularly online, are a really, really important group of people. There might be partners or suppliers that we work with. There might be other peers. There are so many options for target audiences, but one of the ones that I often see overlooked as well is our own staff or our own team, even making them aware of the strategy and how they can support it, or engaging and including them with it if there's some internal aspects, or our potential staff and team as well. Because if people are looking to move jobs or sussing out a new role at a particular business, I can guarantee you a lot of them are looking online and looking at the website and the social channels to get a bit of a feel for the organisation, the culture and the values and those types of things as well. So thinking about the impression we're making so that we're attracting the right type of staff that help us do our job better and reach our goals is a really important target audience. And with online, we are absolutely spoilt for choice. So it is going to vary depending on whether or not your business has a geographic location, or if you're an online business, you'll potentially have a global audience as well. We are so spoilt for choice. So it's certainly not a case of using the nearest supplier or a local supplier. We can search online, we can ask for recommendations, we can do all sorts of things to help us find the person who's going to best suit our needs. So it's really important to be able to stand out and resonate with the right type of people. And to do this, we need to get a really good understanding about what our target audiences actually want, what they want, not what we want from them, not what we want them to do, not what we want to give them or tell them or show them, but what they actually want. And understanding this piece, again, will help with those engagement tactics down the track. So this could be something like people wanting a product or service fast. They might want it to be convenient. They might want it to be easy. They might want it to be relevant. That whole what's in it for me is what most people are looking for these days. Security might be a big aspect. How ethical a product or service is might be important for someone. Whether or not it's organic, whether or not it's natural. It might need to be cheap. It might need to be exclusive. There might be multiple things that your target audience want, but having this understanding of who they are and what they want and what those different groups of people want is, again, going to make the actual digital engagement piece much easier, because we've got the answers to those questions that are going to come up. So this is another task that people generally don't like doing or try and skip over. And it sounds really cliche, but I guarantee taking the time to develop target audience personas, and I've said persona here, but it should be personas. There might be multiple people who fit into a particular audience group, or at least one persona for each of those different groups, whether it's your potential customers, your suppliers, and your staff might be the 3 target audience groups who are most important. So this does take that time to kind of map out, give them a name. I always think it would like name the puppy. Think about who you are talking to, so that when you are creating content, creating campaign ideas, maintaining your channels, you can think about, what would Lucy think of this if I was writing this? So actually spelling out who they are, their demographics, so things like gender and age, looking at their occupation, their marital or family status, their lifestyle, their interests, who or what influences their product and service choices, what their goals might be, what activities they do throughout the day, where and how they're potentially looking for information. Like, are they asking in Facebook groups? Are they doing Google searches? Are they doing both? What type of information they look, and even when they look for information. So are they looking more late at night after the kids have gone to bed? Are they looking when they're on the bus going to uni or to work? Actually spending this time to try and map out who it is that we're talking to and getting a really, really clear picture takes time, but makes the rest of the piece so much easier. And base it on a real person. I've done that with a few projects. If you have an ideal client, they're your target audience. So they don't need to know that they are your target audience persona, but you can map out everything that you know about them. Or if you've identified someone who you want to be your customer or client and they're not yet, they're your target audience. So learn all of these things about them. Talk to them if you can. Talk to your existing clients, existing customers. You can ask them these questions. You don't need to make it up. Or if you want to develop these personas, another thing I do sometimes is like find a stock image or find a photo of what you think this person looks like picture them and have it close by so that when you're doing the content piece and the engagement piece, you can actually have that person in mind. So I really recommend spending the time to do this. I was at a conference a couple of weeks ago and something one of the speakers said really resonated with me. He was from a US-based agency that they brought in via Zoom, and he was telling us about all the research that they had done with customers to understand what it is that they were looking for with the different services. I should have credited him here, actually. Damn it, sorry. I'll find his name. But he said you have to be willing to do the work that others don't want to do. And that's how we actually become successful. Like people skip over these fundamentals, wanting to get to the bright, shiny things, and then wonder why it's not working because they haven't actually done this work. So they spent hours interviewing people, and then they found these absolute nuggets that they were able to then use those exact phrases and those exact messages in their Facebook ads to get incredible results. So as daunting as it sounds, you need to spend half a day, a couple of days, get everyone together, do it yourself, run it past people to figure out these aims, objectives, and who it is that we're talking to. Okay, our third piece of our foundation for a good digital strategy is the brand personality. And this is going to incorporate your visual brand, so your brand and logo, what graphics you're using, the style of photographs that you're using, all of those things, because we communicate so much about our organization online visually that having that really clear visual brand that people can identify quickly is going to help you so much. But beyond that, we also want to be able to outline the traits and the characteristics, the style, the values of our brand, because these should be embodied in everything we do and how we do it and how we say it. Social media, obviously that's only one aspect of digital marketing, but it is all about being social and making those social connections. And we connect with people, and people have personalities. So we need to somehow develop that personality for our brand. And this can also be really helpful if there are multiple people who are managing your brand online, so that there's a brand personality style guide or guidelines for them with, this is what we say, this is what we don't say. Do we use emojis? Do we use hashtags? Which ones do we use? And you've got that consistency across everything you do. If you're a solo operator like me, it's a little bit easier because a lot of your brand personality might be based on your actual personality, but you can also choose how much you want to share as well. We don't have to share everything about our lives online. We can choose which aspects we want to share about ourselves and how we want to portray ourselves as well. So do spend that time understanding the personality of the brand and documenting that as well. And then the final part of our foundation is our available resources. And this is the one that often gets missed out as well. And when I talk about resources, if I'm developing a strategy for clients, we'll always chat about what time is available, what effort is available, what people are available, and what money is available. So these are the four main areas of available resources. And it's the thing that I've come up against again and again with developing strategies is that you can develop the most incredible, most amazing, most over-the-top strategy, but if you don't have the resources to implement it, it is not a successful strategy. So we need to work within our means. It might also mean that there's a phased approach as well. If you're just dipping the toe in or starting out, you might have less resources to work with. Then hopefully, as you find that success, you'll be able to find more and more resources to fund it. So even when you're coming up with your ideas within your strategy, it might be important to phase them into, okay, this is what we need to do now, and here's some ideas we can think about for the future. We're going to reassess where we're at in 3 months, 6 months time, and see if we can add something else into it because we've demonstrated the results, or we've made some more money, or we've been able to hire someone else as well. So we've got to be really realistic about what resources we have available. So that's our foundation piece, the target audiences, aims and objectives, brand personality, and available resources. And from that, we can start developing our engagement tactics. So these are generally the bright, shiny things that people want to jump straight into, but I highly, highly recommend spending the time to work out that other piece first of all. And the first aspect of engagement tactics that we always start with is actually content. So lots of people like to jump into channels first and go, well, what are we going to do on Facebook? What are we going to do on Twitter? What are we going to do on YouTube? What are we going to do on LinkedIn? But we'll always, even if people have existing channels, we'll always pare it back and look at content first of all. And this content can be broken down into a few main areas. So we talk about the 4 main areas as being created content. So this is the original content that you create yourself and share across your own channels. It might be collated content, so content that you source from other people, with approval, of course. It might be links to relevant articles in your industry. It might be user-generated content, all sorts of things that you can get from other people that are relevant to your brand. And then we also have what we call evergreen content, so content that you could post at any time of the year. It's generally going to be relevant. Things like quotes are a good example of that. You might have some seasonal quotes, but tips, advice, and those types of things that could be posted at any time of the year. It's great to have some type of evergreen content. And then you've got timely content, so things that are time sensitive. If it's an event that's occurring, something that's happening in the news, very specific seasonal content. So having this nice mix of content really helps provide a well-rounded experience online. So you've got that variety to keep your audience and yourself engaged as well. And this content could also come in many different forms as well. There's all sorts of media. So we've got text-based content in blog posts and website content and email newsletters, and most social media updates will have text that goes along with them as well. It might be images, that's either like graphics or photos. We could have video, that could be audio content. So think about all the different media types that you could potentially create as well. And there's a lot of brainstorming that goes on with content. So we will literally do a content dump and think about all the different types of content that we could potentially create. And Post-it notes are awesome for this, or just big sheets of paper, just scribble everything down. It's that typical brainstorming situation where, there's no bad idea, let's just get it down. Everything we think that we can do, and look at what we've already got as well. So a lot of organizations are often looking to create new content. They don't always look around and see what they've already got. You might already have some information that's tucked away in a brochure that could actually be pulled out and put online. There could be some really old blog posts and case studies that are still relevant. They might need a bit of updating, or they could be converted into a video. It could be repurposed in so many different ways. So it's important to kind of do an audit and see what you already have, and then look for those new opportunities as well. And there's so many different types of content. So behind the scenes stuff works really well on social, because we're all very voyeuristic and we just want to see what other people are doing. And we want to see the stuff that's not a perfect, approved ad campaign that's going out. It's just the real raw stuff that's happening within an organization. There could be staff profiles. There could be specific seasonal updates that are related to Christmas or Easter or a relevant holiday. It might be to do with the weather, if that's what your audience is interested in or is relevant to your business. It could be congratulating someone. I mean, you kind of get the idea. There's so much information and content that's available, and not all of this might be relevant, but this is just going to give you some ideas of the ways that you can look at content. There might be product or service benefits, events, special offers, polls, quizzes, questions, games, articles, ebook, infographics, webinars, statistics, facts, sneak peeks, reports, instructions, handbooks. And again, some of this stuff is stuff that you might actually already have available that you can pull content from or update or repurpose in another way. Reviews, testimonials, recipes, music, price guides, celebrity endorsements. So you kind of get the idea. There's so much that you can do when it comes to content. It can be quite overwhelming, and I do recommend the brain dump. But then we also have to bring it back to that strategy piece. So we are being strategic here. And this is where having that foundation works really well as well, because every piece of content should be assessed back against, does it help achieve our aims and objectives? So something might be fun or quirky, but is it actually going to help us achieve what we want to achieve? Will it be of interest or importance to our target audiences? So we might like it, but are they actually going to like it? Are they going to assess it without what's in it for me, and be interested or, like I said, engaged with it at all? Does it align with our brand personality? So is it something that fits with our organisation? Is it something people would expect to? Is it potentially going to rub people the wrong way? Or make them see us in a different light? And then ultimately, do we have the resources available to do it? And I will admit, content doesn't always have to tick all of these boxes. Ideally, it should tick the last three, but there is going to be some content that might not always fundamentally achieve all of your aims and objectives. Some of it might be fun content that engages our audience and makes them smile, makes them laugh, but it might not fundamentally result in sales or new business type things. So you can take some of it with a grain of salt, but ultimately we do want it to be relevant to our audiences, relevant to our brand, and we need to be able to have the resources to do it as well. And once we've done our content brain dump, what we also like to do to make it a lot more manageable is to pair it back into some core content themes or content pillars. So kind of, 4 to 6 is normally a good amount. This doesn't mean you're only producing 4 or 5 pieces of content and sharing them over and over again, but it's more those general themes that you work with. So you might have educational content, and there could be a whole different range of ways that you could provide educational content on your website, in videos, in social, and those types of things. But if educating your audience is a really important aspect of your business, then that can be one focus for your content theme. You might have inspirational content. If you're talking about, changing people's lives or transforming where they are now to where they want to be, then that inspiration aspect is going to be really important, and that could come through case studies or quotes or testimonials from people that inspires and keeps your audience motivated. It might be fun content. So, humor might be a big part of your brand personality. So actually demonstrating that through fun content, and that could be behind the scenes, things with your staff, funny joke Friday type updates. Excuse me. And then there's, might potentially be some specific sales related content as well. And I always use the 80-20 rule, 1 to 5, 1 to 4, with sales related updates. If that is a part of what you're doing, it can be shared on social, but does need to be considered as part of that overall content piece as well. So within our engagement tactics, like I mentioned, we'll always look at content first of all, and then we'll assess the channels, because we need to know that we've got a clear understanding of content that's going to be relevant, that we can actually maintain, and then we need to figure out the best ways to actually share it and reach our audiences as well. And this can be tricky for some organisations, because a lot of us have actually grown organically over the years. You've signed up for different accounts because someone's wanted to, or someone just has, someone's been told it's a good idea. So if you do have existing channels, it might be a case of auditing them and deciding whether or not they're still relevant, or if there's some that you actually need to reassess. And when we think of channels, there's often the big 4, like we've got Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram, but there's actually so many, that's just looking at social media channels, but we also need to think about our website, our email. There might be location listings, we could be doing podcasting. And when we look at the channels that are actually available, there are so many. So this is a diagram that's been put together by Brian Solis over the last 8 or 10 years, I think. Update it every couple of years. And they actually assess all of the different social platforms that there are. And the big ones are on there, those big 4 that I mentioned, but there's a lot of specific niche ones as well. It doesn't mean you need to be on all of them. It's more just to give you an idea of, you need to think about which ones are the most relevant for your organisation. So not every business needs a Facebook page. Not every business needs a Twitter account or a LinkedIn account. it's a case of actually figuring out what's going to be most relevant for you. Excuse me again. Sorry, winter. I'm so sick of it. So with our channel strategy, just like with our content, we need to assess it back against, will using a particular channel help us achieve our aims and objectives? More importantly, is it being used by our target audiences? So just because we might like Instagram or we might like LinkedIn, it might not necessarily be where our audiences are. So we need to actually do that research to understand what they're using. And that's something you can do as part of that target audience research process as well. So find out where they're getting information from and what their top social channels are. If you do have an email list and you're able to run a survey, even just asking what social channels people use and how they use them is a great way of getting that information as well. We need to think about whether or not the channel that we're using aligns with our brand personality. So is that a clear fit? If we are like a very niche and edgy brand, then potentially going with one of the big popular channels that our target audience might not be using is not going to be a good fit anyway. And probably most importantly, do we have the resources available to support it? And this is one that I'm really passionate about, because I see a lot of people who sign up for a lot of accounts and then get very overwhelmed and don't know how to actually manage them or deal with them. So particularly when it comes to social, I'll always recommend picking 1 or 2 core social channels and doing them really, really well. So really get down that content, that engagement piece on a particular channel. And you can always grow from there as well. So you want to pick the channel that most of your target audiences are using, that is the closest fit to your brand, and that you can actually produce great content for, and just really try and own it and nail it there. And then potentially down the track, you can add in some other social media channels. So what we do try and get with our channel strategy, which we can build on from doing those foundational aspects in the content strategy, is a bit of a summary. This is a very simple version, but a bit of a summary of each channel that we're using across our digital presence, its overall purpose, which should align back with our business goals or aims and objectives, who our target audiences are on each of those channels, because there might be a bit of a mix. We might focus on some on one channel over another, what type of content we're actually sharing on those different channels, and then how frequently we're looking to actually update them as well. So we're going to start, putting some of that implementation piece and setting some guidelines around, how many times we're going to aim to blog per week, how many updates are we doing on Instagram or per day or Facebook per week, and those types of things. And you might not have all the answers to these immediately, but having a table like this where you can start to step it out is going to help with that implementation piece. And then once you have that understanding of the content and the channels you're using, being able to create a calendar, something like this, you can get some very detailed content calendars, but it's really that overview of, okay, if we've said we're going to be posting on Instagram twice a day, what is that actually going to look like? And I like to break my day into kind of main sections. It doesn't mean I'm posting at those exact times every single day, but you want to think about the messages that are going out at that time, where your target audiences might potentially be at that time. So, are they on the bus? Are they potentially scrolling through your Instagram feed and they're going to see that, go to your website when they get to work or what have you? But try and map out how this content might look throughout the week so that you're accountable and have something to aim for. And you might be sharing some of the same pieces of content on multiple channels as well if they're relevant. I'll occasionally post the same thing on the same channel at around about the same time. I'm not a fan of the auto cross posting, but if it's relevant, there's no harm in actually sharing it in those 2 places. You might get some people who see the same thing in both places. I think when that happens regularly or all the time, it can put some people off, but having that occasional overlap is not necessarily a bad thing. And then the last piece of our engagement tactics is our campaign strategy. So with our content and channels, what I'll really aim on getting is more of that day-to-day, week-to-week general plan with, this is what we've committed to, this is what we're doing overall. that our campaign can be really used to help plug those gaps and create some more interest and more excitement at certain times of year if we have certain sales or events going on that are kind of a bit out of the ordinary to our day-to-day. Or this could also be your advertising piece as well. So it could be how you flesh out using something like Google Ads or your social ads, or more creative campaigns if you're running a fundraising initiative or have a new topic or something that comes up as well. That can get quite detailed, but I think as long as you've got that core foundation set and a clear understanding of your overall content and channels, campaigns could then be used to complement those. And just like with those other aspects of our engagement items, we need to think about with campaigns, what else do we need to achieve our aims and objectives? And is that a specific campaign that could help us achieve it? What other interesting ways can we reach and engage our target audiences that are going to potentially reach more people or really excite or engage our existing audiences as well? What else is going to align with or help communicate our brand personality? Is it potentially working with another organisation and having that kind of co-branded campaign that can help both of you? And what can we do within our available resources as well? So if resources are slim, then it might be a case of, or if your organisation's quite new to digital strategy, having a digital strategy, then just focusing on that initial phase of getting a couple of clear channels up and running with regular relevant content might be your goal. And then down the track, you might be able to look at what's possible from a campaign perspective. And then the final piece of our strategy puzzle is our measurement strategy. And like I mentioned at the start, if you've identified some really clear objectives, then identifying the relevant metrics should be relatively straightforward. So for something like wanting to increase email subscribers by a certain percentage, you've already got your measure there. It's looking at our email subscribers, and the engagement tactics need to be focused around how can we gain email subscribers. What I really love doing, and I've been doing a lot of this kind of work recently at the tail end of the strategy, is putting together some reporting dashboards because with digital, we're generally using multiple channels. So we might be working across our website and email and social, and being able to have them all in one spot and seeing those results in one spot can be really, really helpful if you are, time poor or have a large team who need to be able to see what is going on. This is the dashboard that I use as well. I call the mega dashboard. I like having everything all in one, and it works for me because I'm in control of all of these aspects, so I can see this really quickly and understand it. But depending on the size of your organisation and who actually needs access to these metrics, you might want to look at some different dashboard configurations as well. And another tactic that we're using a lot is creating one kind of overall dashboard for upper management. It might be more, generally encompassing the broad vision, giving people some kind of big picture understanding of what's going on to achieve the aims and objectives. But then there might be some specific dashboards that sit beneath it that either focus on specific objectives, or it might be specific channels as well, that those people who are kind of on the ground and responsible for running the channels and implementing and managing the strategy can jump into to get that extra information as well. So this is what our framework looks like when you pull it all together. So you see on the left-hand side there, we've got what I was calling those foundational pieces. So knowing your aims and objectives, knowing your target audiences, knowing your brand personality, and knowing what your available resources are. With that information, you can then develop your engagement tactics. So first of all, brainstorming and thinking of content, but making sure your content all actually resonates with those foundational elements. From there, we can look at the channels that we're using. And like I mentioned, you might have existing channels that you choose to shut down because you realise they're not helping you achieve your objectives, they're not being used by your target audiences, or you just can't resource them. So it's really about finding the most important, most relevant channels that you can focus on and do a really, really awesome job with. And then we've got our campaign. So it might be that, extra ad campaigns or extra creative campaigns that we can fit into that day-to-day digital that we need to do to develop and grow and maintain our online presence. We need to have some way of measuring this all, and if we have those measurable objectives, then that measurement strategy is much easier, and then it needs to be looked at regularly so we can feed that information back into our aims and objectives and refine them, because this doesn't necessarily need to be a static thing, and it shouldn't. It's not a case of setting a 5-year plan and just following it to the letter regardless of what's happening. Things are changing very, very quickly in digital, so we need to actually be really nimble and be measuring quite quickly so that we can track back and go, well, you know, did this achieve our aims and objectives? If not, why not? Do we need to change a tactic, or is that aim and objective actually not relevant to us anymore, and is there something else that we need to do? So being able to get this onto a 1 page or a couple of pages, we literally have a template, a Word doc template with headings for these different areas that we've gone through. Some we've set up in a spreadsheet, just a spreadsheet summary, 1-pager, that people either have come up on Google Drive when they first log in, or if you want to print it out and stick it on the wall, to just keep in mind, this is what we do, this is why we do it, this is who we do it for. And then use those extra tools like the content calendars as well. So I thought I'll just give you a look at how this all comes together for us. And some of this has grown organically over the years as well, and we've tried a few different bits and pieces. But I also like to try and map out with our channels how they all work together as well, because they don't live in isolation. We've got this online presence, which is generally omnichannel. It's a very hip thing to say right now. And in most cases, your website should be at the hub of your online presence. Yes, we use all of these other tools, but your website is typically the one place that you own completely and have complete control over. So it should be really central to everything that you do. And depending on your business model, driving traffic to your website is often a very key part of your strategy. So our website has a blog which gets visited quite heavily. We obviously run events. We've got downloads. Our podcast is integrated with our blog. We have a lot of videos that come in from YouTube, and we run webinars such as this as well that all kind of hang off that core website. And then we also have our email and CRM that taps into our website as well. So we've got a general subscribe form, but it also ties in with downloads and ebooks that are available on our site and our webinars as well. We get a lot of traffic from organic search, and we attract a lot of referrals and backlinks to our website based on our content that we develop, because it meets a certain need of our target audiences. So SEO is a really key consideration for what we do. And then we use social a lot as well, both to reach our audiences and reach new audiences and continue to engage them, but also drive them back to our website as well. So there's a lot of crisscross that happens over here. It looks really complex, but when you think about it and break it down, most organizations should be able to build a bit of a map like this. And then we also run different ad campaigns. So we're not constantly running ad campaigns, but we use both Facebook ads and LinkedIn ads, and then Google ads, both on search and display, to drive that extra traffic to our site and to specific services when we need it as well. There we go. There's the arrows. So some recommendations for you. Like I said, you will get the link to the replay of this webinar. So you'll be able to watch it back and have a look at that strategy diagram if you want to. But I would encourage you to develop or update your strategy if you don't have one already. Really, really, really know and understand your target audience. You want to get your whole organization on board with this. So ideally including them through the strategy process. Remember, Michael mentioned at the start that management isn't on board with a strategy, and obviously I don't know the details of what's going on there, but I generally find if we can include as many important stakeholders at the start, then the buy-in and support is going to be much, much greater. So do consider who needs to be included and get them involved as early as possible. We also want to, you can empower, even if your team isn't directly involved in the development or the implementation or the management of the strategy, it's great to empower them with how they can be involved in or support your efforts, particularly if you have a large team who might be a little bit unsure of what digital is. Maybe some basic training is what they can use. And there's some organisations who are doing this really, really well with having their team what looks like voluntarily promote the organisation and their working environment and culture and values on things like LinkedIn, which is really great. We obviously need to figure out what it is that we want to track, and hopefully we've got those measurable objectives that we can track. And the thing with digital, while a lot of it is measurable, it doesn't all happen by default. So if you want to be able to measure sales that occur on your website from all online sources, there might be some specific tracking that you need to put in place with the content that you're sharing to allow you to do that as well. Don't just assume that it's automatically going to occur. You need to actually put in those tracking elements from the start. I recommend creating a digital dashboard. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased, but I do find them a huge time saver. They can take a little bit of time to get set up initially, but having it both from an implementation and management perspective as well as a reporting perspective is really, really useful. And set yourself those regular times to review and potentially adjust your direction. So hopefully you're doing reporting at least monthly, but measuring that back against your strategy, having that strategy review quarterly or every 6 months to determine whether or not any changes need to be made or whether or not you are actually achieving what you set out to achieve. Or in any instance when a new bright shiny thing like TikTok's all over my feed at the moment, assess TikTok, go and have a look at it for an hour or two and then go back to, okay, will TikTok help achieve our aims and objectives? Is it being used by our target audiences? Does it support our brand personality? And do we have the resources to actually use it? And if it doesn't tick those boxes, then bye-bye TikTok. But if it does, then it's something you can look at layering into your strategy. Or if the resources aren't there yet, maybe it needs to be put into a potential new phase as well. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with, the best thing about having a strategy is being able to go back to it and say, look, this is just not working. And what we initially set out to do is not what we wanted to achieve, or this is not the way to do it. But we can actually make that change, which is really, really valuable. If you're still struggling with this, hopefully this has been a helpful overview for you. We do have a couple of extra resources. So I'm going to keep the pitch part of this webinar very, very short. If you follow our social, you may have seen our Digital Marketing Reboot ebook. It's a free ebook, free 30-page ebook that we've been promoting over the last few weeks. This ebook will help guide you through the process that I've just talked about. So it uses the same framework and has some questions and activities to prompt you and assist with setting your goals, determining your target audience, defining your brand personality. We've got a little bit in there on keywords. So a bit of an introduction to SEO and keywords in there, helping you to plan your content, focus on the most important channels, consider those campaigns that could enhance your content, and then measurement as well. So in the offers section below the screen, there should be a title for Digital Marketing Reboot ebook. So it's a free ebook. You just need to enter your email address because that'll get emailed to you, but you can download that for free on our website now. We've had actually a huge number of downloads of that over the last couple of weeks and some really great feedback. And if you have used it, then yeah, I'd love to know what you hear about it as well. So either feel free to pop that in the chat or send me an email directly, because it's a resource that I think is really valuable and I'd like to keep improving as well. The other thing we have coming up is our Digital Strategy Bootcamp. So this is a little project that I've been working on in the background, and it's an online, it's a 8-week online training course. So very reasonably priced, and similarly to the ebook, but in a hell of a lot more detail, and a lot more detail than what we've just gone through. We'll be going through all of those components that we just talked about. So helping you, providing resources and guidance to identify those aims and objectives, develop those audience personas, do all that work that no one else wants to do, so that you have that really clear foundation to then go and develop some really valuable, effective, successful strategies, both across content, channels, and campaigns. We'll also have a module that helps build your implementation plan as well, and then that measurement piece at the end as well, even though the measurement at the end is really just the beginning of the strategy, because our focus throughout this whole training will be on that dynamic approach to digital strategy. Thanks, Claire. See you later. There is a link. Both of these are available on our website. If you go to the homepage, there's links to the from the homepage and the navigation. But in the offers section, there's a link to more information about that bootcamp as well. We're hoping to have it released towards the end of this year, so that people can get their strategies up and running in time for 2020. 2020, can you believe it? We're just taking expressions of interest at this stage. So it's not necessarily a waitlist stage or anything, but there's a real outline on what you can expect from that bootcamp. And if you go through and express your interest there, we'll send you updates as we further develop that. So thank you so much for joining. I really hope that has been a helpful overview of the approach that we take to developing a digital marketing strategy. We've used this across a whole range of organisations of different sizes and different shapes and different industries and different types. And it honestly works. It's really scalable as well, so you can make it as simple or as complex as you want. It might just be simply having those headings and a couple of aims, 1 or 2 target audiences. You might only be focusing on 1 or 2 channels and having a couple of different content themes, or it can easily be scaled up to a very large organisation where you can tackle, each of those target audiences, channels, content themes in much more detail as well. So I'll hang around for about 5 more minutes or so. If anybody wants to pop any questions in the question section below, or pop them in chat, or if you have my details, you can always get in touch, or check us out on social as well. I'd love to hear your feedback about this, and as usual, any other topics that you're keen for us to cover in our monthly webinars. And if you do want to learn more about the Digital Strategy Bootcamp or download that ebook, then you can click on those quick links below as well and get more information there. So have a good afternoon. If it is the afternoon for you, it's almost the afternoon for me. I think I'm going to have to go and have another throat lozenge, and hopefully I'll be able to get through tomorrow's training session okay. But thanks very much, everyone. Have a great day.